Hello everyone, and welcome to this second broadcast of a 5-part webinar series that is being put on by the ACS Chemistry and the Law Division. I'm Mike David, and I'll be your host for today's broadcast, which is focusing on lifecycle management and research opportunities for patentable inventions. We will be joined today by Xavier Pillai from the firm Leydig, Voit Mayer in Chicago, and Krista Bianco from the firm Finnegan, Henderson, Farbau, Garrett, and Dunner in Washington, D.C. If you have any questions or comments, you can enter those using the questions panel. The slides for today's webinar can also be downloaded from that same control panel, and the recording will be sent to you once it has been posted. And now, I'm pleased to turn the time over to Krista.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Krista Bianco, and I am the current program chair for CHOW and also a past chair of CHOW. In the first webinar, we discussed some of the procedural and legal aspects of obtaining a patent. In this second webinar, Xavier will focus on some of the different types of patentable inventions in drug development and what criteria the Patent and Trademark Office and courts use to evaluate whether those discoveries are entitled to patent protection. Xavier is also a past chair of CHOW and has counseled corporations, institutions, and other clients on protecting pharmaceutical inventions for over 20 years. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Xavier.
Thank you, Krista. I'll be happy to. Today I will be speaking on life cycle management and research opportunities for patentable inventions. Basically, these patentable inventions relates particularly relating to pharmaceutical inventions. Life cycle meaning the life of a product can be extended, and therefore it could be protected and sold for many more years than just one patent can give. Before we go into the pharmaceutical patent itself, we need to know various government agencies, how they shape the patent law in order to set the stage for understanding how an invention can be patented. I have listed 7 steps there. United States Patent and Trademark Office is number 1. That's where your invention patent application is filed, and then you have when the patent examiners examine your patent application, either they grant you a patent or they deny it. If you are not happy with the decision of the examiners, you can appeal the decision to the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, which is also an agency which hears the inter-parties review, post-grant review, and patent re-examination. All this information would be useful for people who are getting ready to take the bar exam, patent bar exam, by the way. You can also sue the United States Patent and Trademark Office in Washington, D.C. District Court, asking them to force the patent office to grant a patent. Now, once you have a patent and you have a product that is being sold, if there are infringers, those who want to copy your product, patented product, they're trying to sell your product, then you can sue them in various district courts, either, for example, in New Jersey, in Delaware Court, or in Eastern District of Texas. These are some of the popular district courts. Once all this initial litigation is over in the district courts, the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, that is in Washington, D.C., that Court of Appeals is almost the final arbiter. They make the decision whether the lower court's decision should be maintained or not. So most patent lawsuits stop right there. Occasionally they end up in Supreme Court, some cases. We are actually going to touch upon 1 or 2 cases during the seminar here. Now, U.S. Congress, of course, has a role in it. It enacts the law. It writes the bill. And in September of 2011, a bill called America Invents Act was sent to the President of the United States, and he signed that into the law. All these agencies shape the law, but most importantly, the people who are listening in here, you are the most important one because you are the one who are going to create the inventions. So let us see what happens. In order to get a patent like this with your name inside, what the patent should satisfy, invention must be useful. It should not be an abstract idea or a product of nature. You don't want to be patenting useless ideas like how to swing like a Tarzan, or how to build a human car wash system and things like that. Or you want to try to patent, the sun rises in the east as an abstract idea, or a product of nature like a piece of DNA from a plant or from a human being. These are not patentable. It is also must be novel, meaning it should not be disclosed in a single prior art document. It could be a patent, it could be a published application, it could be sold in the market. Then it also must be non-obvious. Non-obvious meaning it is not exactly, at the same time it should not be a colorable modification, just minor trivial modifications. This is, I'm going to speak at length about the non-obvious because this one impacts how you obtain patents on pharmaceutical follow-on, second generation, life-extending patents. That's our topic is going to be. Of course, there are other requirements. You have to write your patent application to describe your invention fully, what your invention is, what are the structures, what are the substituent groups, how to make these compounds, and so on and so forth. Now, this obviousness I touched upon, this is the statute, this is the law, what the president signed into. This is 50, 60 years old, this law, and this is a lifelong learning experience because this law is not that very simple. I have given talks on this for the last 15, 20 years, and I'm learning every time I touch upon it, I learn something new. All it says is you're not going to get a patent. This is the way the Congress writes it. If the differences between the subject matter sought to be patented and the prior art are such that the subject matter as a whole would have been obvious at the time the invention was made to a person of ordinary skill. So what does this mean? It's easily said here, but in terms of guidance for an ordinary practitioners like me or people like you, inventors, we look to the court cases. There are two Supreme Court cases. As I mentioned, Supreme Court, rarely takes up patent law cases, but these are the two Supreme Court cases. You can see one came, Graham versus John Deere, 1966, and then almost 50 years later, you have got KSR versus Teleflex. So you can tell, but these are very important cases. This John Deere versus the John Deere case set forth the steps by which how to determine whether your invention, proposed invention is obvious or not obvious. If it's not obvious, you get a patent. So in this process, you have a four-step process. You have to look at the prior art, what it contains and what it does not contain in terms of disclosure, and what's the difference between your patent, what you're trying to patent, and what is in the prior art. And now, the differences should be looked through the lens of a person of ordinary skill in the art. For example, in a pharmaceutical area, it could be a medicinal chemist with a Ph.D. and 3 years experience in the laboratory or in teaching. So this is the level of ordinary skill in the art. It is not a mechanic who operates a power plant. No. Similarly, if it is an invention writing to a lathe or a machine, it is not a medicinal chemist. And then once you have these three factors, they are in favor either it is patentable or non-patentable. Now, suppose the judge decided it's not patentable, you still have one more bite at the apple in the sense objective evidence of non-obvious. Listen, even though it may be obvious, look at the property. Like, for example, the prior art shows a methyl group on 4 position of this compound. I put an ethyl group. There's only a small change. Even though it could be obvious, my property really goes through the roof. Like the binding affinity is 1,000 times better, so I can give much less drug, so that the side effect is even much less. So in that case, there's a good chance you will get a patent on that. This is the case, electronic position sensor case in the KSR, the second one. This 2007 case made obtaining patents more challenging, but not impossible. So let's go through it very quickly. This is not a pharmaceutical case, but the case, nevertheless, this will be applicable to pharmaceutical, DNA, whether it is making in electrical apparatus, whatnot, everything. All it is a gas pedal which is adjustable. There's a combination of an adjustable gas pedal and a sensor that is mounted on it, the support structure. The sensor is watching how far the driver is depressing the gas pedal and then sending that information to the the gas lever, so that the amount of fuel that is admitted to the engine is controlled. When the gas pedal is pressed further down, then the distance decreases, more gas is fed to the engine. So that kind of a thing. The question there was whether this Engelgau patent, which has these 4 features: adjustable gas pedal, support structure, electronic sensor mounted on the support structure, and a fixed pivot point, meaning this pedal structure is not sliding up and in and out, but it is going up and down but the fixed point. Okay. Now, there were prior patents. Obviously, most inventions, there's always a prior patent. There was one patent called a Rixson patent, which had an adjustable pedal assembly with an electronic sensor located on the foot pedal itself. So naturally, if there is mud on the shoes, then it will reach the electronic sensor on the wire that connects it. So they had a problem, wire chafing problem. Then there was another patent called a Redding patent. It showed an adjustable pedal, not a fixed at one location, but you have to slide the fixing point. It moves up and down. Now, Smith disclosed mounting the sensor on the support structure. Support structure is away from the pedal. Asano disclosed an adjustable pedal with a fixed pivot point. So apparently what this Mr. Engelgau did was he took the adjustable pedal with a fixed pivot point and then combined with the Smith in terms of putting the electronic sensor, mount the sensor on the support structure to get this patent. Now, the patentee would, when it is challenged, the validity of the patent, makes all kinds of arguments. You're allowed, and they made all these arguments in various lower levels. And what they say is, oh, the problem that the prior art was trying to solve was different than the problem that we are making. No. Judges said, this is, by the way, Judge Alito wrote this opinion, unanimous. Any need or problem in the field can provide a reason for combining references. So that is a very strong way. Basically, there could be one reason for which the prior art does it in that fashion, but as long as it shows you can combine the two, doesn't matter what is the reason behind it. Then here is another thing. When there is a design need or market pressure, design need means you really need to have the support structure and the sensor close to it, or a market pressure. You want to keep the cost down. You cannot sell the car if you don't have an adjustable gas pedal, market pressure, to solve a problem. And there are only finite number of identified predictable solutions. These words are all pregnant words, full of meanings in it. So finite number, it is not a million ways you can put electronic sensor and gas pedal together in the next to the driver. There are maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. That's a finite number of predictable solutions. It is not like a chemistry where you have a 4-membered ring with 6 positions for substitution, and any one of them could be 100 different substituents. That is, and in chemistry you have a lot of unpredictable nature, but in the mechanical case like that, it's more predictable. And the judge said, justices, if a person of ordinary skill has a good reason to combine the teachings of prior art with a reasonable expectation of success, it's a lawyerly talk. It doesn't have to be absolute expectation of success. As long as there is some possibility, then it is not an invention, meaning you don't get a patent. It's one of ordinary skill and common sense. So common sense was introduced. Common sense is not a good thing to get a patent. Common sense solution to the problem at the time of the invention is there existed a known problem for which there was an obvious solution covered by a patent, then that patent is invalid. These are the words of the justices. Common sense teaches that familiar items may have obvious uses beyond their primary purposes. A person of ordinary skill in the art will be able to fit the teachings of multiple patents together like pieces of a puzzle. This will come very handy when we look at various pharmaceutical patents. The patent examiner or the judge may take some parts of the teaching from one patent, from another patent he may take some other teachings and combine them and then say, look, your patent is a combination of these two. Then a person of ordinary skill is also a person of ordinary creativity. The person is creative, not an automaton. He's not just a machine. He doesn't know what to do. So this is an important thing to remember. Now, there used to be a law before KSR, that before 2007, attorneys used to argue, it will be obvious to try to combine it, but it's not really obvious. The Supreme Court said, no, most inventions which are obvious to try are also obvious. So you don't get a patent only when an exception, two exceptions there, when there are no direction in the prior art. The person having ordinary skill in the art must try all possibilities, all parameters, like in the case of this four-membered ring compound steroidal molecule with 6 different substitution positions, each with 100 possibilities. That's an infinite number of substitutions. There is no direction, or there is a vague direction in the sense, well, you can have hydrophobic groups in any of the locations. So that kind of a vague direction, that is not enough. Now, having set the stage for that, here are some of the examples I have included. Types of patentable inventions for drug developments. You can come up with new formulations. I will go into detail a little bit more. Combination therapy. For example, 2 different drugs can be combined to give you some kind of a synergy. Then you can come up with the genus and species. You know, somebody may have patented a family of compounds, and in which you can come up with new compounds which fall, even if it falls within the genus, it may have better properties than what they found. You will be able to patent it. New therapeutic uses. For example, somebody may use it for treating a disease. For example, to alleviate the symptoms. You can come up with a process for changing something else. Like, for example, in HIV treatment, you can increase the number of immune cells, for example. That will be, that was not known before. You can work on metabolites. Even metabolites which are formed in the body could be used. Enantiomers, this is a very active area. There are some structures here, citalopram, we will go into that a little bit more detail. Polymorphs it's a very active area. It could be monohydrate, semihydrate, pentahydrate, it could be different crystalline forms. These things could have advantages. For example, they will have better shelf stability. When you make it as a tablet, and if the tablet has to sit or be shipped in a truck at high temperatures, they have to remain stable. You can develop methods of synthesis. You can develop new therapeutic regimens, meaning you can administer the drug, instead of 24 hours, you can once in a week maybe, or you can alternate 2 drugs, that kind of stuff. You can have prodrugs. Here is an example of ester prodrug, that is loratadine, also sold as Claritin, which is the prodrug of des-loratadine. Different salt forms. Some salt forms are more stable than others. For example, that stability, which could, if it was not known or if it was provides a certain advantage, even salt forms are patentable. Now let's look at different formulations. For example, immediate versus controlled release formulations. I picked anti-diabetic drug, metformin hydrochloride, a very simple molecule, has been known from the 70s. Guess what? There are patents even today being filed and approved on various advancements of metformin hydrochloride because it is a big market. if you do a search for metformin hydrochloride, number of companies trying to get Food and Drug Administration's approval, the website shows 275 companies have filed applications and obtained approval for marketing their drugs. That is a very large number of applications that shows it is a very active field. So every invention that is made today, depending on the market size, depending on the money that is involved, is open for further invention. Early patents in the 3 million range in the 1970s, then followed by osmotic systems. What they did was they put a coating around the tablet, and the coating allows the water to get into the tablet. It swells at certain osmotic pressure. The tablet bursts and releases the drug. So you have delayed release. Or then another example is glucophage. It's a very popular drug. There is a patent number there. It is has an expanding agent and a gelling agent mixed with metformin. Of course, it has got 2 doses per day you have to do. That's the negative part of it. Then comes, there's also other disadvantages, like it has got, in fact, if you take it with food as opposed to take it without food, there are differences which are not very favorable if you take it with the food. So I have listed those differences. So people were looking for something better than that. Here comes a formulation from Andrex Pharmaceuticals. This is what they did was metformin hydrochloride plus povidone, which most of you know, polyvinyl pyrrolidone, made it into a tablet, coated it with a cellulose acetate membrane, semi-permeable membrane, and then they drilled 2 holes on each side, 1 hole on each side, I should say. They came up with this patent claim. One is reproduced here, what they controlled release oral dosage formulation. The dosage form being suitable for providing once a day. You don't have to give it twice a day as the previous glucophage. In a single dose, you don't have to divide it. Let's look at this. Patients will be very happy to take just 1 dose, especially if it is an elderly patient. Most of them are when they have diabetes. And the plasma concentration reaches of this metformin reaches 5.5 to 7.5 hours. So the person eats the dinner at 7 o'clock in the evening, takes the drug right after that. By the time 5.5, let's say 6 hours comes in, that's 1 a.m. That's when the plasma concentration reaches maximum. That's when the drug is needed most. You know why? Because the liver releases glucose at the time by the decomposition of glycogen into glucose. So that is the time you need it. You want to have metformin hydrochloride the maximum. So it has got the dual advantage of that. So another claim 3, which has got 5.5 to 7 hours and so on. Look at the plasma profile here of the metformin hydrochloride. The time as a function of plasma concentration. The solid line is the invention from Andrex. It has got just the maximum concentration reaches in about 5.5 to 7 hours, and it lasts throughout the night, 24 hours. So you just need 1 dose of 1,000 milligrams as opposed to giving 500 milligrams of the glucophage, the prior art, and then you have to get up early in the morning and then take another one and so on. And still you don't get full benefit of it. Basically when the glucose level is very high, the plasma concentration of metformin hydrochloride is not that high, so it is not that effective. So that gives you an understanding of how we can come up with the new formulations which provide better patentable inventions. I have listed many other immediate release formulations, extended release formulations, delayed release formulations. Please read it at your own leisure. In view of the short time frame, I want to move on to the next one. Now I have a question to ask the audience. I will turn it over to Mike now.
All right, so we just wanted to ask you this following question, and in just a moment a interactive blue screen will pop up and you can click directly on that. So the question is, a claimed invention would only be patentable if an identical product is not already on the market, 5 prior art documents have to be combined to show suggestion to arrive at the product, prior art documents give specific guidance on how to make the invention, or none of the above. And so here is that interactive window. You can go ahead and just click your answers into the screen right there. And just a reminder that we are eager to get your questions, and the earlier you ask those, the more of a chance we have to get to them, so no need to wait till the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to be closing this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, this one was kind of a runaway, Xavier. 71% of the audience said none of the above, and the next highest was an identical product is not already on the market with 24%. So what's the correct answer?
The correct answer is the majority, the 71%, none of the above. Very good audience. I'm so proud of them. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mike. I will move on to the next one, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
The next one I will take an example. Enantiomer. You can patent a pure enantiomer over a mixture of enantiomers. In this particular case, I have listed the case name, court opinion name, the enantiomer that is Lexapro, that is a plus enantiomer of citalopram. They call it acetylopram oxalate. The claim is substantially pure, plus form of dimethylaminopropyl, fluorophenyl, dihydroisobenzofuran, carbonitrile, and non-toxic acid addition salts thereof. And there is also a method of preparing the compound by cyclizing an intermediate diol. Now, of course, you will have Forest Laboratories, the inventors. Their patents were challenged by Ivox Pharma and Cipla. These are generic drug manufacturers. They also want to get into the market. In order to be able to get into the market, they need to certify to the Food and Drug Administration that either the patent is invalid or they don't infringe. Most of the time, they say the patent is invalid, so we want to go ahead and market it even before the patent expires. They cite many prior art references. They cited it, the main one being the Smith reference. The Smith reference, of course, did not actually teach a method of isolating the plus isomer, so there is no anticipation. And then there is no teaching of how to separate the plus isomer from a mixture. At the time, HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography, was relatively new and it was unpredictable. At one point we talked about reasonably predictable. Here it was unpredictable, and other people failed to separate the plus isomer from a mixture. They even, in a lawsuit like this, they usually bring heavyweight experts. In this, Forest brought in Dr. Danishevsky as a medicinal chemistry expert, and he said, hey, I tried to replicate everything that was in the prior art, and I was not able to separate the plus isomer. So the prior art is not a good prior art. It does not guide a person of ordinary skill in the art to make this compound. The inventors succeeded in resolving or separating by an entirely different route, which is what they did was they took the diol part of this from this area, diol part of this, and used that to separate it, and then they re-enclosed it. This would have required undue experimentation, a lot of trial and error, which was not disclosed in any places, so there was no anticipation. It also was not obvious because there is no motivation to resolve the mixture because it is an unpredictable task. Most of the persons with ordinary skill will try to go for a new compound. There is no reasonable expectation because other people have tried and failed. Even the original inventor of citalopram, the mixture, he could not do it, to separate it. It was also unexpected that the plus isomer is the active part of the isomer. It has twice the potency of the racemic mixture. That was not known before. A person of ordinary skill in the art would not have easily turned to the diol intermediate to attempt to resolve the racemate because of the uncertainty involved and because the two cited references described. They cited references, but The references did not disclose citalopram, but much less complex compounds. I got one more question for you. Mike, do you want to take it over?
Of course. So a claimed invention is said to be anticipated if 2 or more prior art documents have to be combined to arrive at the claimed invention, it must have been taught in a single prior art document, or if it has been disclosed in a prior published but abandoned patent application. And here's the chance for you to enter in those responses. And on this one, you can click more than one, so select all those that you think are correct. And most of you are getting your votes in, so I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Xavier, there were kind of 2 runaway on this, the B and C. B got 68% and C got 71%.
Very, very good answer. B and C are correct answers. Once again, the audience is a very, very smart audience. I'm so proud to be speaking to them. Thank you. All right. Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. Yeah. Now comes a more challenging aspect of it: combination therapy. This comes from a lawsuit. Allergan is the original inventor of this eye drop formulation, and then Sandoz is a generic drug manufacturer. They are challenging the 4 patents that I have listed there. This product is called Combigan. It is an eye drop for treating glaucoma, that is intraocular pressure. Of course, as I mentioned, the lawsuit takes place always at the district court level first, and the district court found all the patent claims valid in the sense that, Sandoz cannot market it until they license it, or they have to wait until the patents expire. Of course, there was a challenge to the Federal Circuit, Court of Appeals, higher court. The Federal Circuit said the district court erred in finding the claims of the 463 patent valid. Among these, the 463 patent is questionable, and that the defendants failed to prove claim 4 of the 149 patent, this patent, would have been obvious. So it went both ways. In essence, the bottom line is Sandoz lost. But even though they got a little bit, but it doesn't really help them. They have got, I'm sorry, let me go back. In the previous slide, in other words, the patentee lost because some of the main claims, which were very needed, they became invalid. The ingredients, they contained the 3 ingredients in this eye drop. You got 1, 2, 3. This is an alpha-2 agonist called brimonidine, and the second molecule is timolol, which is a beta blocker. Both are blood pressure medications known already. And here is a preservative, benzalkonium chloride. Claim 1 of this 463 patent, a composition comprising about 0.2% timolol and about 0.5% brimonidine as the sole active agents in a single composition. There were other claims which included the limitations, additional limitations like the benzalkonium chloride and packaging material and so on and so forth. In essence, they had 0.2 timolol and 0.5 brimonidine. On the other hand, the claim 4 method is the method of reducing the number of daily topical ophthalmic doses of brimonidine administered topically from 3 to 2 times a day without loss of efficacy, wherein the concentration of brimonidine is 0.2%, the method comprising administering 0.2 brimonidine and 0.5 timolol in a single composition. The essence of this claim is reduction of the number of daily dose from 3 to 2. Just imagine a person with eye problems, IOP is generally, again, elderly population. They would love to have reduced number of administering. If you can only do it 2 times a day, that is so much better. The patient compliance will be better. as opposed to claiming a composition itself. Composition means something that is sitting in a jar. It doesn't say anything about how many times you administer it. So it doesn't have, this does not have that limitation. So this will have a problem, whereas this claim is a better claim. So the moral of the story is, even if you are not able to patent a composition claim, you can still patent a method of administering it, method of reducing the dose, method of avoiding a side effect, method of increasing the longevity. All these method claims, once you get a patent, you will be able to list these patents with the Food and Drug Administration in the process of obtaining license, and you are giving notice to the rest of the world that you have to answer it to me if you try to copy it. So that is a good place for you to start your business. Now, coming back to the arguments of the defendants. Defendants are the generic drug manufacturers who want to challenge the patents. They had a prior art, like Defantis is a prior art, which disclosed the use of another drug, apraclonidine, which is an alpha-2 agonist, in combination with a beta blocker. It also taught separate administration of 2 or more medications resulted in poor compliance. Patients, elderly patients, did not like to have 2 separate administration, one drug and another drug. Instead of having to have 2 separate bottles, have it in one bottle. So there existed a known problem for which there was a market pressure, there was a design need. Remember I talked about in the early slides? Here it is. Alpha-2 agonist also was taught in this 0.01 to 2% concentration. Timolol was already shown, and in a fixed concentration, benzalkonium chloride is a known preservative. Okay, the prior art did not disclose brimonidine specifically in combination with timolol, but there was a disclosure in this Defantis patent. Oh, by the way, you can also read, there is another patent, Timmermans, which discloses other alpha-2 agonists. And if you read the Timmermans patent, it discloses brimonidine. So then there was other patents, Larson patent, which talks about combining 0.2, 0.5, but 5 minutes apart administrations. So it's very well known. Both are commercial forms like brimonidine and timolol, preservative. They're all already known materials. So at the time of the inventions, only 3 known alpha-2 agonists were known. Remember the finite number of predictable solutions I talked about? There are 3 known, and all you're doing is selecting one from the 3. Is that an invention? Obviously not. Only brimonidine was available in the US. By the way, you cannot use the other 2 because the other 2 are not approved in the US anyway. There were at least 4 other fixed combination products for the treatment of intraocular. These are all in favor of the challenger of the patents. Lot more evidence. They marshaled a lot of evidence. Okay, the district court heard all these arguments. Usually these trials last weeks and months, sometimes even longer. Finally they came and says, oh, well, there's no motivation to combine the 2 drugs because the Food and Drug Administration did not view patient compliance as a factor in its approval. That's a wrong point to consider for a district court. The formulation art is unpredictable. There were some teachings that taught away, meaning don't do it this way. You have to do, it's almost like saying that do not combine brimonidine with timolol. But there was no such thing like that. But they extract information a little bit. They take poetic license to say it is taught away. There were secondary considerations according to the district court, meaning, oh, this is making fantastic product. It's selling like a hot cake. We are not able to keep it on the shelves because, and then people have been looking for this for a long, long time, and this is the only thing that satisfies all those things. Of course, it moves to the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals did not agree with the district court. They said both brimonidine and timolol were commercially available at the time of the invention for ophthalmic treatments. They were available only available in the claimed concentrations in the specific, and also with benzalkonium chloride. And it also taught serial administration, that is one after the other, reduced intraocular pressure greater than either brimonidine or timolol alone. And the reference that the defendants brought up, DeSantis provided the motivation to formulate the two drugs in order to increase patient compliance. Okay, patient compliance we talked about. And here they say with respect, motivation can come from many different places and forms. It cannot be limited to those reasons that the FDA sees fit to consider in approving the drug applications. There is no requirement in patent law that the person of ordinary skill be motivated to develop the claim, the invention, based on a rationale that forms the basis for FDA approval. These are United States Patent Office and Food and Drug Administration. They are entirely different, even though there is a connection to between them through the patents. For the Patent Office, for the district courts and the federal courts which examine the validity of a patent, what the FDA thought is not that important. But I have to put a caveat there, meaning that in parentheses. For example, I mean, I may digress it here because you don't want to take this home and say, no, I can say whatever I want to the FDA, it doesn't really matter. No. Let's say you say to the FDA, this particular drug, has a tremendous amount of side effects, and so we have to lower the dose. But then you say something else to the patent office saying that this particular drug has no side effects. You don't want to make those contradicting statements. Then the patent that was obtained based on erroneous statements, possibly you willfully made those statements to the patent office, could become unenforceable, and you don't want to go that route. So you have to be, but what other, in this particular context, what FDA considered and make comments on the patient compliance was not relevant for studying or determining the inventiveness or obviousness of this composition. Of course, yes, in the pharmaceutical arts, in the formulation arts, there is some level of unpredictability. But what we need is a reasonable predictability. You don't need absolute predictability. There was a reasonable expectation because DeSantis, that reference, showed two agonists and beta blockers are complementary and they should be used together. And it also taught the successful use of benzalkonium chloride in ophthalmic formulations. Like, for example, suppose there was a problem in putting the benzalkonium chloride in together with the other two drugs. Let's say one precipitates out. Then you try to adjust the formulation to keep everything in solution. Now you have an invention. That is not the case here. So keep looking for opportunities. Difficulties encountered in developing Combigan, the commercial product. The early attempts to use a proprietary preservative failed, but there was no difficulty with the use of benzalkonium, which is what is claimed. So they tried to use different preservative, but they failed. If they had been successful, they would have patented that, but they did not. But went with something that was known already, so there's nothing inventive here. So it is. And it also, the prior art did not also teach away. Teaching away is a doctrine in patent law. Like all the prior art would teach one way. That is, you have to go east. Whereas you took a turn and you went west. Like prior art taught that you cannot use sodium electrode with aqueous chloride electrolyte in a battery. I'm talking about another Supreme Court case. But the inventor, Mr. Adams, they said, I am going to put magnesium electrode and aqueous electrolyte. I'm going to make it. Even though the prior art said you should not use magnesium, I made it to work. In fact, it is better than what he made with this. So I took something that he said, don't do this because you're going to have an explosion. Whereas I knew how to make it. So that is a teaching away doctrine. If there was a pointer in the opposite direction or something that says don't do it, then you have a way out of being found obvious. That's not the case here. The district court considered certain aspects of prior art pointing to side effects, the different dosing regimens in certain commercially available forms of brimonidine and timolol, and the disparate half-lives of brimonidine and timolol. The Court of Appeals to the Federal Circuit said the above cannot trump the clear motivation to combine brimonidine. See, the motivation to combine is like a king. If the king is very, very powerful, teaching away is only a maid servant. A maid servant will not trump the king. So even if you have a success in the marketplace, it's not going to take it. If the motivation is only a low-level secretary or something, I'm not saying anything about with respect to secretaries in terms of editorial comment on it, some other person, and then you have teaching away doctrine, then there is a competition between the two. It is like a scale. You would see a judge, symbol of a judge with a balance, with a blindfold. You balance the two. How much is the motivation, versus how much is the teaching away? If the teaching away is strong and the motivation is less, then you get a patent. The secondary factors they talk about, that is your advantages. Long self-need, makes a lot of money, or it avoids some side effects, and so on and so forth. Yeah, there are something like that. I agree there may be some advantages, but it's not strong enough to move it. But when it comes to the method of reducing the number of daily topical doses from 3 to 2 times, that one, the defendant, the one who challenged the patent, failed to show that the prior art teaches the combination would have no loss of efficacy. So when administered only 2 times rather than 3 times. So this claim is better. All right? So what's the moral of the story? Combination therapies could be sometimes challenging to patent. It must show very high levels of synergy. When you combine 2 drugs, you get better than what you can get each one individually. Maybe you can get avoidance of side effects, or rely on a particular dose ratio, or range of ratios, or number of times you administer, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will turn it over to Mike and Krista.
Perfect. Now we're going to get to your questions in just 1 second, but before we do that, I wanted to let you know that the Chemistry and the Law Division focuses on educating others about the issues that arise at the intersection of chemistry and the law. They are organizing a number of IP-related symposia in San Francisco and invite you to attend as well as join them for a drug and power lunch on Monday, April 3rd, and a networking reception later on that evening. For more information about the benefits of CHAL and how to join, visit chemistryandthelaw.org or ask them at the reception in San Francisco. And with that, Krista, I'll throw it to you to take the first question.
Yes, thank you. Some of the audience questions was, Xavier, if you're faced with the prospect of acquiring limited non-U.S. patents with personal funds for some of these pharmaceutical inventions, what countries beyond the U.S. may be most important or economical for obtaining a patent if you wanted to attract a licensee?
Oh, it's a very good question, Christoph. This comes up often, almost all cases, I would want to say that. What you have to look at is, there are several points you have to look at. What is the disease that is being treated? If it is HIV, for example, the market is like India, Africa, where the most patients are. What is the market size in that area? That's one thing. If it is cancer, it could be Europe, it could be United States. This is a large one. That is one factor. Second factor would be the legal certainty. Now, if in the United States the patent law is very well developed, but perhaps the most advanced, so the court system is fully established. you know with a reasonable certainty what will be the outcome. There is a predictability, so you can take a chance. The investors will be able to take a chance. Whereas unknown country, Brazil or Greece or Italy or Taiwan, we don't know their track record. We do not know, even though they may have a laws in their books. We don't have, like for example, China had certain unfavorable reviews until a few years ago. In order to mitigate those unfavorable reviews, they revised the way they enforce the law, revised the way the patent law was, applied to the inventions. So you want to consider that also. Typically, often what happens is you end up getting patents in Europe. For example, UK, France, Germany, maybe Greece, Spain, Portugal. These are the main European countries. Ireland, of course, it's in the UK. Norway, Sweden, possibly. And Canada, Australia, Japan. China is becoming more and more popular. Like HIV, India is becoming another target. Cancer, India is becoming target. There are a lot of squamous cell cancer being reported there. Yeah, so South America is another area for tropical diseases. So that's another possibility. So these are all, this is the way we choose. But almost all of the drugs, United States is number one. Obviously, you're looking into obtaining patents for other countries. This is what I would do. This is the most popular set of countries.
Okay, do you have any tips or ways that people could try to figure out if other people are operating or incorporating certain parts of the invention of their patent into their product or manufacturing parts of their product? Basically, how to track what other people are doing to figure out if somebody might be infringing one of your patents.
Oh, that's a good question. No, this is infringing a patent. It is a very big topic. For example, you may not know directly whether they are infringing or not. Nobody is going to tell you. For example, you have a method of making a compound. You have a patent on it. And you have come up with a new catalyst, and you're using that. Now, how do you know if somebody is selling a polymer or a drug molecule that was made using this catalyst? So you probably would not know, but if there is a chance that that polymer was made by the process, you may want to get it. For example, get a sample of that and do an analysis to see if there is a fingerprint of the catalyst that may have been used. If you are the only supplier of the catalyst, then you know that has been. Another way to do this is to go to a trade show where products would be displayed by your competitors. In fact, there are PIs, private investigators, who pose like ordinary customers. They just walk around and ask very innocent questions to these people to find out, oh yeah, how long have you been selling this? How do you make this? Kind of curious, because I haven't seen this before. So that is another way. Sometimes there will be trade journals, publications. They publish their product. They advertise their product. So these are all so many different ways. You can find out if your patent is being infringed upon. You can also, do a search in the patent office. Those who are trying to patent may also be interested in your patent. Let us say let's say Bristol Myers Squibb is patenting something on extended release formulation, and you have something that is related to it. They may want your patent so that they are free and clear of this of the portfolio before they market. So you want to know who are all the active players in this market. So those are all the parts of the checklist. It's not exhaustive, but that's a good starting point.
Okay. Well, I see that we're nearing the end of our time. Again, I want to echo and encourage all the attendees to, if you're out in San Francisco, to come attend some of Child's programming. I know Xavier will be presenting on strengthening your patent rights in light of recent Federal Circuit Court decisions. And I also will be participating along with some attorneys from Europe, Australia, China on what is patent-eligible subject matter and what are the opposition procedures in various countries to challenging patents. So we look forward to seeing many of you out in San Francisco, and I will turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Xavier, for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. I'd also like to thank all of you in the audience for joining us for the second broadcast of this series. Our next broadcast on April 11th will be presented by Marianne Armstrong of Birch, Stewart, Kolarz, and Birch. Marianne will focus on the collaborative research considerations in patents. And remember, the recording for the first broadcast of Patents 101 is available right now to watch on YouTube. You can hit that at bit.ly/ACSChal1. And if you didn't get a chance to write that down, you can just go to YouTube and search for Chemistry in the Law Division, and it comes right up. Now, we will be sending you a short feedback survey that pops up as you exit this webinar. We would appreciate it if you let us know what you thought of the broadcast. Also, remember that the recording of this presentation will be sent to you once it has been posted. And that wraps us up. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on April 11th.